Imagine a boy, abandoned by his tribe, starving on the cold Mongolian steppe. His father poisoned, his mother desperate to keep her children alive, his family hunted like wild animals. That boy would rise to become the most feared conqueror in human history. His name, Temüjin. The world would come to know him as Genghis Khan, a man who built an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe, rewriting the map of the world. But how did a starving child of the steppe rise to rule a quarter of the globe? This is the epic story of Genghis Khan. Our story begins in 1162, near the banks of the Onon River, where Temüjin was born into the Borjigin clan. His father, Yesugei, was a tribal chief, a man of influence. But in the world of the steppe, power was fragile, shifting like the wind across the grasslands. His mother, Holun, had been abducted as a bride, a fate not uncommon in the brutal tribal wars of Mongolia. From the moment of his birth, Temüjin's life was marked by violence and survival. As a child, he learned early that loyalty on the steppe was a fragile thing. His father was poisoned by rival Tatars when Temüjin was just 9. Suddenly, his family lost all protection. The tribe abandoned them, leaving Holun and her children to survive alone. They scoured the earth for wild onions, dug roots from frozen ground, and fished the rivers with bone hooks. This was no noble upbringing. This was raw survival. But hardship forged Temüjin's will. When rival clans threatened his family, he fought back with cunning. In one infamous story, he tracked down his half-brother Bektar, who had tried to take food meant for his starving family. Temüjin killed him with his own hands. Brutal? Yes. But it was also a statement. Temüjin would not allow betrayal, even within his own bloodline. Slowly, he built alliances. At the age of 16, he married Berta, a woman whose partnership would prove critical to his rise. Yet tragedy struck quickly. Rivals kidnapped Berta, hoping to break Temüjin's will. Instead, he gathered allies, launched a daring raid, and rescued her. This victory marked his first real step toward leadership. Temüjin proved different from other tribal chiefs. He didn't just demand loyalty through blood ties, he rewarded merit. A warrior who fought bravely could rise, even if he was born a slave. This broke centuries of steppe tradition, but it attracted followers who saw in Temüjin a leader who valued skill over lineage. By his 20s, Temüjin had united thousands under his banner. But his greatest rival was Jamuka, a former blood brother turned enemy. Their conflict split the Mongol steppe in two. In a climactic battle, Jamuka captured 70 young warriors loyal to Temüjin and executed them in the most horrific way possible, boiling them alive. The cruelty shocked even the hardened steppe warriors. Many abandoned Jamuka and joined Temüjin, who promised justice, discipline, and rewards for loyalty. By 1206, after decades of brutal conflict, Temüjin stood supreme. The Great Kurultai, a council of Mongol nobles, proclaimed him Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. He was no longer a starving boy or a hunted outcast. He was the master of the steppe, and his gaze turned outward to the world beyond Mongolia. The Mongols were not the largest empire by population, nor the most technologically advanced. Their power lay in something far more terrifying: organization, speed, and discipline. Genghis Khan revolutionized steppe warfare. He divided his armies into units of 10, 100, 1,000, and 10,000, each with clear chains of command. No soldier fought for his clan alone. They fought for the empire. This merit-based system destroyed the old aristocracy and gave rise to a new order where even a shepherd could rise to command thousands if he proved his worth. But discipline was only half the story. The Mongols were masters of psychological warfare. When a city resisted, they made an example of it, massacring entire populations to spread terror. But when a city surrendered, they often spared it, incorporating its craftsmen, scholars, and merchants into the empire. Fear and pragmatism walked hand in hand. The Mongol horsemen were the finest cavalry the world had ever seen. Each rider had multiple horses, allowing them to travel over 100 miles in a single day. Their composite bows could pierce armor at incredible ranges, and their tactics, feigned retreats, encirclements, sudden ambushes, outsmarted enemies from China to Persia. To face the Mongols in open battle was to face a storm of arrows, followed by the thunder of hooves. But Genghis also embraced knowledge. Captured engineers built siege engines, while Chinese defectors taught them gunpowder weapons. The Mongols became not only masters of mobility, but also of siegecraft, capable of bringing down the mightiest fortress walls. With his armies disciplined and terrifying, Genghis turned outward. His first great target, the Jin dynasty of northern China. For centuries, the Mongols had paid tribute to these Chinese lords. Now, Genghis Khan reversed the roles. Campaign after campaign, the Mongols crushed Chinese armies many times their size. They adapted quickly, using captured engineers to build catapults, battering rams, and even early gunpowder bombs. The fall of Zhongdu, modern Beijing, was a turning point. The city burned for a month, its people slaughtered or enslaved. The message was clear: resistance meant annihilation. Next, he turned west, toward the Khwarezm Empire in Persia. At first, Genghis sought peace, sending caravans of merchants to establish trade. But the Shah of Khwarezm, arrogant and suspicious, executed his envoys. This was a fatal mistake. In a campaign of unmatched brutality, Genghis unleashed his wrath. Cities like Bukhara and Samarkand fell. Chroniclers wrote of pyramids built from human skulls, stacked as high as city walls. The Mongols were not just conquerors, they were a force of nature. By the time of Genghis Khan's death in 1227, his empire stretched from the Pacific to the Caspian Sea. His sons and grandsons would push even further, into Russia, the Middle East, and eventually Europe itself. The Mongol tide seemed unstoppable. When Genghis Khan died, his empire did not collapse. Instead, it expanded even more. His descendants carried his vision across continents. Ogedei, his son, sent armies into Eastern Europe. They annihilated Polish and Hungarian forces at battles like Legnica and Mohi. The road to Vienna lay open. Only Ogedei's sudden death in 1241 saved Europe from Mongol conquest, as the generals returned home to choose a new Khan. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, the Mongols sacked Baghdad in 1258, ending the Abbasid Caliphate in a storm of fire and blood. Chroniclers say the Tigris River ran black with ink from the destroyed libraries, and red with the blood of scholars and citizens. But the Mongols were more than destroyers. They created the largest free trade zone in history, the Pax Mongolica. Along the Silk Road, merchants could travel from China to Europe under the protection of Mongol rule. Spices, silk, knowledge, and even the bubonic plague crossed these routes. In fact, without the Mongol Empire, Marco Polo's famous journey to China would never have been possible. Genghis Khan's legacy is double-edged. In Mongolia today, he is revered as the father of the nation. Statues of him tower over the steppe, his face on currency, his name invoked with pride. But in Persia, Russia, and the Middle East, his memory is one of terror, fire, and devastation. To some, he was a genius lawgiver who introduced religious tolerance and promoted trade. To others, he was the greatest butcher in history. From an abandoned boy on the steppe to the ruler of history's largest land empire, Genghis Khan reshaped the world. His conquests brought both unimaginable suffering and unprecedented connections between East and West. He was a man who rose above starvation and betrayal, driven by an iron will and a vision larger than life itself. So what do you think? Was Genghis Khan a brutal tyrant or a brilliant visionary who built the foundations of the modern world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more cinematic history like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because here on Epoch Light, we uncover the past not as dusty dates, but as stories that still echo in our world today.